When we talk about energy equity or climate equity, it's worth thinking about that in a different context to which that might apply. In remote communities, we're more than likely talking about energy access. In Indigenous communities, it could be about access, but also about energy justice. I'm going to talk about energy and climate equity in Canada's urban centres, which is where I work. And so for that, we talk more in terms of energy poverty, which broadly speaking refers to households that struggle to meet their energy needs or pay their energy bills. To that, I'd like to provide a little bit of an introduction to the CUSP network. We are the Canadian Urban Sustainability Practitioners. My name is ALlison Ashcroft. I'm the Managing Director of CUSP. And we are a municipal member-led network consisting of the sustainability directors from the 16 cities listed here on the slide. And as you can see from our membership, there's a broad representation across all of urban Canada as the large and leading cities on climate and sustainability. I wanted to highlight a few statistics about our membership so as to show you the impact that this network and Canadian cities more generally have on our climate change challenge. So just over half of the population in Canada, or 18 million people, live in CUSP's 16 cities. They also generate more than half of the nation's GDP, or $1 trillion. And over $100 billion is spent annually on energy expenditures in these cities. Finally, 250 megatons of greenhouse gases are generated from buildings, transportation, and waste in these cities. So for that reason, cities for a long time have been the leaders on climate action globally, and the same is true here in Canada. What is relatively new for cities and our partners is looking at climate change and our response to it through an equity lens. In 2016, CUSP identified equity as a key priority to be advanced in cities through our work together. Now, the definition of climate equity on this slide comes from our partner network, USDN, the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. And they talk of kind of two angles when we look at climate equity in our work. Firstly, to ensure a just distribution of the benefits of our efforts towards climate mitigation and adaptation. And secondly, to alleviate the unequal burdens that are created or exacerbated by climate change. We know from the early climate equity work that we're doing here in Canada and from the more long-standing work that some of our partners in US cities have been doing, that the areas and buildings with the greatest risk and vulnerability to the impacts of climate change, say for instance, heat-related mortality or flooding, are by and large areas in which low-income communities, communities of newcomers, and people of color, as well as urban Indigenous live. We also know that these marginalized communities have been historically underserved by and underrepresented in our government. So then we know that climate equity requires intentionality to really ensure that our plans, policy, and program development, as well as projects, address the effects of both climate change and inequity, as well as bring permanent change to the systems that perpetuate this inequity. The image to the left on this slide is a cover of a guidebook that CUSP produced with our partner network, USDN, in 2018. And throughout 2018, working with 7 cities from the United States and Canada, along with a number of expert advisors and the CADMIS Group, a consulting firm out of Boston, we created the guidebook on equitable clean energy program design for local government and partners. And this guidebook walks users through key considerations and best practice in the design and engagement, structure, and delivery of programs for electric vehicles, heat pumps, rooftop solar, and solar storage. This guidebook can be used by municipalities, utilities, senior levels of a government, NGOs and social enterprise, anyone really looking at developing more equitable clean energy programs. But similarly, the equity principles contained within this guidebook would be equally relevant to policy and planning, as well as capital projects. This guidebook, along with 4 in-depth case studies and a list of another 35 programs that we investigated through the development of this project, are all available on CUSP's website. Specifically to the clean energy transformation that we envision for our cities. Well, In Canada, nearly 3 million households live in energy poverty, which again broadly means they struggle to meet their energy needs or pay their energy bills. From a measurement standpoint, we define those experiencing energy poverty as spending 2 times the national median of their income on energy. The national median household in Canada spends 3% of their income on energy. So a household experiencing energy poverty, by our measure, spends more than 6% of their income. In fact, many households spend upward of 10% of their income on energy costs, and some as high as 15%. Not surprisingly, low-income households spend a disproportionately large percentage of their income on their energy bills compared to others, but there are many households also in energy poverty without being in income poverty. In other words, there are a significant number of moderate income households that struggle to meet their energy needs or pay their energy bills. Beyond income, reasons for having higher energy cost burdens are living in colder climates and having higher energy rates. Those both are fairly geographical. But other reasons relate to poor conditions in the home and poor efficiency of equipment. So why is this an equity issue that requires correction? Well, firstly, through the energy rates we pay to utilities, as well as our taxes, everyone is paying for the upgrades to this infrastructure, as well as paying to fund various energy efficiency and clean energy programs offered by government and utilities. But not everyone is positioned to benefit from these public investments. First-generation clean energy programs encouraged and rewarded early adopters. This led to uptake of clean energy technologies like solar and electric vehicles by higher income households who are not experiencing high energy cost burdens. Next-generation clean energy programs require that we achieve deep emissions reductions across the entire community. And so they must be accessible to all Canadian residents if we are to meet the targets that we have established. To do this means looking at all of the different barriers that households have to accessing clean energy technologies and the institutional programs that deliver them. Those barriers may include ineligibility. If you are a renter or a person without a garage or off-site parking, you are unlikely to be able to participate in traditional solar, heat pump, or electric vehicle programs. Similarly, most of these technologies still come with a higher upfront cost. So if you do not have access to affordable credit and financing, you more than likely will not be able to pay. Depending on where and when outreach and awareness activities are held, or the language they're conducted in, you may be excluded from even knowing about these programs or the benefits for these technologies and how they might help you reduce your household costs. So achieving our ambitious emissions reductions targets and preparing case for a changing climate also requires addressing structural racism and other systemic equity. Through the guidebook and CUSP's work to operationalize it, we are changing the approach we use to design clean energy programs so that our next generation clean energy programs are more inclusive and accessible of the low and moderate income households and other marginalized communities who have experienced barriers to accessing them in the past. When we do this right, we will develop solutions that overcome the barriers of our most underserved and thereby ensure entire communities can achieve their climate and equity goals, lower household costs, and that we're creating local and just job opportunities. Thank you.